Children taken hostage. The hunt for the gang who did this to a 79-year-old woman. Rioters attacking police. And was internet trolls threatening Stan Collymore and even mocking the death of a 3-year-old? How can they be stopped? It's time for you to crack cases. This is Crimewatch. Hello and welcome to Crimewatch. We are live for the next hour with this month's latest crime news and appeals, including the woman living in a caravan while she built her dream home, robbed and sexually assaulted by a masked gunman.
He had hold of my hair and he pushed me into the bedroom. That's all I keep saying. It's why me.
And I'll have my latest collection of wanted faces. People wanted for supplying drugs, for fraud and for robbery. And I really want to know who this lowlife is, stealing from a 93-year-old woman in her own home. Let's get him locked up tonight.
And take a look at this. It's the world's smallest lily, incredibly rare and identical to one taken from Kew Gardens. Could it have been stolen to order?
Now just imagine you are sitting down having dinner with your kids on a typical weekday evening when an armed gang bursts into your home. Well, it happened to the Bloor family in Buxton in Derbyshire just a few weeks ago. The father, Kevin, runs his own metal refinery business, and it seems that that's why the family were targeted.
Was my dream house. Lived in Buxton all my life. Married Claire, who's a Buxton girl as well.
We are a very close family. We do a lot of things together, you know. The school runs, come home, it's tea time. We always, most of the time, we sit around the kitchen table and have a proper family tea. We've always
Felt safer in the town than, you know, we hear horror stories in the cities, but never thought it would overspill to Buxton.
In November, Claire had gone Christmas shopping with the eldest child. Kevin was at home with her 8-year-old son, 12-year-old daughter and her school friend.
So I picked the children up from school. The mood was great, all jovial, all laughing. And we were probably just about finished.
Nobody move! Everybody shut up! Shut up! Oh, shut up! Shut up! Shut up! It's the other one! Don't stop! Move them now!
Obviously the kids were terrified. I obviously was terrified.
Come on, this way! Tie them up! Quick! Who is it? What? The money!
It was just terror to start with.
There's a safe! Where?
I suppose I had to try and keep calm for the kids.
Give it, sit down. All right. Sit down. Shut up. It's all right. Shut up. Shut up. Let's get it. Where is it? Wardrobe. In wardrobe. Show me. You shut up. Shut up. Okay, man. All right.
They obviously took whatever was available at our house.
Shut up.
They were after more.
Shut up.
But then they got onto going to work.
Kids, are you all right?
Asking how much gold and diamonds and cash was available at work.
Take us, lad. You've got to take us.
I would have to leave the kids. you didn't want to do.
Come on, we'll take this.
For the family, the realisation that they would be separated.
Shut them up! You, get up!
I gave him a kiss and just said, look, just be good, do as you're told.
You shut up!
I suppose at that stage I didn't know if I was coming back.
Come on.
The children were held hostage while Kevin was made to drive to his company warehouse, his hands still tied.
Where's the thing? Open it!
They took gold bars, bags of diamonds, bags of platinum wedding rings.
Kevin had no choice but to fully cooperate with the gang, knowing his children were being held.
None of the other safes were accessible, but there was a small portion of other metals, silver, that was on the shop floor. I wasn't resisting, I was just trying to do everything as quick as possible to get back.
Around half an hour had passed since Kevin had been made to leave his children.
Where's CCTV? Where is it? On roof.
The men then demanded to know where the CCTV recorder was. But they took the wrong piece of equipment, leaving behind this crucial evidence. A short while later, Kevin was reunited with the children, but the ordeal still wasn't over. The family were forced into a wardrobe and told not to come out for an hour, or they would be killed.
There was horror not knowing what was going to happen.
Eventually, they made the decision to escape.
Told the kids to stay there while I went around the house, but they came out because they didn't want to be left on their own. And I could see that they'd gone and got what they wanted. I would definitely say that I was a soft target. They knew that if my children are threatened, then they will get what they ask for.
I can't get my head around what kind of evil animals, what kind of person plans to do that to children. What they've done to my family, I want them caught and I want them punished.
Worst nightmare that you can't protect your kids in your own house. You know, a place where they would feel safe.
Well, I'm joined now by Detective Chief Inspector Gareth Meadows, who's heading up this investigation. It's a very good point that Claire makes there. What kind of person would plan to do this? What kind of person would plan to do this to children? It is completely terrifying what those youngsters have been through.
It is. The level, the threats of violence in this incident are truly shocking. If you think about the children, they were tied up in their own home, they were threatened with knives and machetes, and then they were separated from the father for a significant amount of time. I think the offenders might have boasted about the proceeds of this crime and the money that they stole,
right,
but I don't think they'll have boasted about what they did to these children. What I'd ask anybody out there to do is think about those children and the effect that this has had on them in their own home, and if they've got any information about those offenders, to get in touch with us. OK,
let's cut to the chase of the CCTV, because you've got that. You wouldn't necessarily have expected to have it. What's important about it? What should people look out for as they're watching this?
The CCTV, the offenders thought that they'd taken the CCTV recording device. I can reveal for the first time tonight that even though Kevin Bloor had told them where the device was, they took the wrong part, and we have footage of them in the premises. What I'd ask people to look at is look at the footage, look at the red and black gloves that the offenders were wearing, look at the distinctive Adidas stripes on the trousers, and look at the distinctive trespass logo on the clothing. Put the pieces of the jigsaw together. I believe these offenders are from the Manchester area.
Right, you were saying you think these guys might be pleased with themselves, they might be boasting. That is because there was £300,000 worth or so of stuff that they got away with. There was gold, there was silver. They'll have tried to move this on, won't they?
That's right. I'd like to appeal for anybody in the gold and jewellery trade to consider whether any of the proceeds of this crime, as they've come across it, some of the items are distinctive. For example, the gold bars have markings on them.
Right.
I'd ask them to think about the children, and if they've got any information, to come forward and contact us about that.
Gareth, thanks very much indeed. Surely a night that those poor children will never forget. We're pretty certain there's going to be people watching who know who did this. Perhaps they didn't realise what those children, indeed what their dad went through that night. Well, now you do know, and it's time to come forward. The number for the studio is 0500 600 600. Let's go to Martin.
Now, before tonight's Wanted Faces, we have an urgent appeal from Hertfordshire Police to find Darryl Brothers. They want to speak to him about an incident 2 weeks ago during which a woman was held hostage, strangled and badly beaten. 28-year-old Brothers goes by the street name Real and has links to Kent and Lewisham in South London. He has a number of tattoos, including the words "Born Alone" on one hand and "Die Alone" on the other. Police say he's extremely dangerous and poses a particular risk to women. So if you see him, call 999 or the incident room on 01438 757540. Now, first on the board tonight is Lamine Touré, who goes by several other names, including Lamine Janet. Detectives urgently need to trace the 35-year-old in connection with a series of sex attacks, including the attempted serious sexual assault of a woman in Leeds last month. Touré, who's originally from the Gambia, has links to West Yorkshire and to Newport in Gwent. Next is Andrew Simmons. Detectives need to trace the 57-year-old in connection with the possession of hundreds of indecent images of children. Simmons has links to Wiltshire. Wanted face number 3 is a woman who called herself Roxanne Murphy, although police don't think that's her real name. They want to speak to her about large-scale supply of crack cocaine. The 32-year-old, who has a Jamaican accent, has links to the Forestgate, Tottenham and Newham areas of London. And finally, for now, is Mary Whelan. She is wanted for being convicted in her absence for her part in a violent brawl during which the victim was so badly beaten he had to have his spleen removed. 61-year-old Whelan, who's originally from Wexford in Ireland, has links to Cheshire, Manchester and to the Holloway and Harrow areas of London. All of these faces are on the website and you can see them again by pressing your red button. If you know where they are, call and text the numbers on screen. Text will be charged at your standard message rate.
Now, it's almost a week since toddler Mikhail Kuler was reported missing from his Edinburgh home. As if the subsequent discovery of his body wasn't dreadful enough, police are now investigating offensive comments posted on Twitter about the case. Vicious insults and threats sent online, known as trolling, is, I'm afraid, a growing problem. Just today, in fact, the former footballer Stan Collymore has spoken out about the abusive messages that he's received online. We'll hear from him in just a moment. Well, Matthew has been to see how specialist police units are cracking down on the online hate mongers.
Three-year-old Mikhail Kular's body was discovered in Woodland on Friday. It was the news the search parties had been dreading.
I can confirm that we've recovered the body of a young boy in Fife shortly before midnight.
But whilst hundreds attended a memorial service to pay their respects, police found others had gone online to post vile messages about his death.
Online trolling is a growing problem. The latest figures show that around 2,000 crimes relating to online abuse are reported to police each year in London alone. Nationally, the scale of internet bullying is enormous.
There have been several high-profile cases recently. Journalist Caroline Criado Perez suffered a torrent of online abuse after campaigning for Jane Austen to appear on the new £10 note. This month, a man and a woman from the northeast both admitted sending some of the malicious messages. They're due to be sentenced on Friday. And it's not just those in the public eye who are targeted.
Lauren was a very confident, fun, really loving girl. She would do anything for anyone. I was willing to help anyone out. Just a really lovely daughter.
In 2011, 14-year-old Lauren passed away in her sleep. Soon after, her mother Carol found out just how vicious the trolls could be.
A friend of hers set up a rest in peace site so that all her friends can leave messages for her. And this is where this guy had started leaving messages and things. He would put, "Help me mummy, it's hot in hell." A video came up which was quite nasty, and it had an open grave and headstones and just say "coming soon," and there was a body with maggots on saying, "Mummy, this is what I look like now." Just lots of nasty things really, and he would set up a picture of me and Lauren. He would deface her and put "Kiss Mummy goodbye one last time." It was just awful, and we were going through hell.
But how do you find these anonymous abusers?
Here in Manchester, the police have a dedicated team using the latest technology to help track down the trolls.
The worst of it, it's just beyond belief. It's sick, it's vile. It's comments that people make, you know, about raping somebody, decapitating them, stabbing them, murdering them, stuff that we'd find absolutely unimaginable.
Take me through how quickly you can identify them, close them down.
We can literally, and we have been talking about 2 to 3 hours of seeing something that's posted there, identifying the individual and knocking on their door, execute a warrant at their address, seize the equipment, and we'll prosecute them for the offence.
And you'll have heard what trolls say. They talk about freedom of speech. They talk about people, if they don't like it, don't look. What do you say to that?
There's quite clearly a threshold with what is freedom of speech, comments that people should be at liberty to make, and then what is, you know, clearly abusive and people would find alarming and distressing. And, you know, the average person in the street would know where that threshold is.
So what sort of people troll, and why do they do it?
Things that do emerge again and again are loneliness, some aspects of depression, people who perhaps have large amounts of time on their hands. Things like tribute sites are often seen as a good place to go. And trolls will look for sites like that because you will quickly cause enormous distress, enormous outrage. And there is an enormous feeling of victory for a lot of people who engage in that activity when that happens. Online, people are not conscious, they don't feel they're hitting a wall, at which point they are going to have to face negative consequences.
They say the pain gets easier. It doesn't. You learn to not have them around, I suppose, because there's nothing you can do, but the pain is still as bad as when we lost Lauren, definitely.
Carol reported the abuse to police and found the man responsible had already been arrested for similar offences. He was sentenced to 18 weeks in jail.
They may think to themselves, are you sure, is it really that easy to actually track them down? What would you say?
I'd say it can be complicated, it can be painstaking, it can take time, but we are willing to invest that time and effort to do that. They think that they're anonymous and that there's some kind of protection there. My message is that they're not. We can trace them, we will trace them, and we'll prosecute them.
Pretty unbelievable stuff, isn't it? So what can we do about it? Well, with me here is Laura Higgins from the UK Safer Internet Centre. You have helped lots of people who've had to deal with these sort of horrible problems. What kind of things have you seen?
Yes, we've seen some really sad cases, so things like teenagers being told everyone hates you, drink bleach. We've dealt with adults where they've had rape threats, death threats, and threats to harm people's children. Really awful things.
Yeah, really serious things. As we heard there from the officer in the film, there's a difference between strong banter and outright abuse. We've spoken to the historian and TV presenter Mary Beard. She has faced some very serious threats.
It's not nice getting that kind of stuff. But when that turned to be real threats of rape, decapitation and violence, a bomb's going to go, your house is going to be bombed and it's going to be at 11:29 tonight and we're watching you. Now, at that point, that isn't the kind of thing that you deal with by retweeting it with an exclamation mark to your followers. I mean, that's a threat of violence, that's a crime. And as soon as people have have crossed that line from laddish, nasty but laddish abuse to threats of death, you have no option but to go to the police.
Mary Beard there, yeah. So serious threats clearly do need to be taken to the police. Facebook and Twitter say that they have made it easier to report abuse, and Twitter say they're going to have more staff to investigate. Well, earlier today, we spoke to Stan Collymore, who says that he has faced horrendous threats and racist abuse, and he thinks that Twitter should be doing more to protect its users.
The amount of racist abuse just seems to be getting worse. And on top of that, threats to kill, threats to turn up to a home and murder. And this is almost now Twitter living in its own bubble with the tagline on the top, freedom of speech, which particularly an ever younger demographic are taking literally, that there is no recourse, that they don't live in the United Kingdom, they live in Twitter world, and in Twitter world you can say anything. And that is a very, very dangerous precedent to set.
Laura, there's a big debate about the responsibility that lies with the social media companies. Let's leave that to one side for now and give people practical things that they themselves can do. What advice would you give, given your experience?
Okay, I mean, the first thing is, you know, if you're experiencing these issues, you need to do something about it. Now, the sorts of things we're talking about are very serious. They are illegal. These are hate crimes. They're threats to harm people. So we need evidence. So the first thing you need to do, really, don't retaliate, don't retweet, but get screenshots, because that will help any investigation. You know, Twitter and people will work with law enforcement, but it is a process we need to go through involving court as well.
OK, we've run out of time. That's a really good piece of advice. Thank you very much indeed. OK, still to come tonight, the hunt for an armed sex attacker.
I didn't see the point in fighting. Move! You never really think it would be something that would happen to you.
And thugs captured on camera. Remarkable footage of violent scenes during an English Defence League protest. Can you name the men involved? But first, Matthew's got a roundup of the latest crime news.
Now, early on the morning of Sunday, December the 14th, the badly beaten body of 53-year-old Jean Campbell was discovered by her husband in a park just a few hundred yards from their Glasgow home. This previously unreleased CCTV footage shows the mother of two in a local shop the previous day. And this, from later on that night, is the last confirmed sighting of Jean walking with her dog Kai towards Cranhill Park, where her body was discovered. Detectives are appealing for anyone with information to contact them on 0141 532 4191. In the first few days of the new year, a 79-year-old woman was attacked as she walked home from her local Tesco Express on Mancunian Road, Horton Green in Manchester. A gang of muggers rifled through the victim Joan's pockets, and although nothing was stolen, they beat her repeatedly, leaving her with horrific bruising. A reward of £2,000 has been offered through Crime Stoppers for information. Now, police have released shocking CCTV images of a man who was mugged on the streets of Birmingham as he walked home from a party. The 51-year-old turned around after a dinner plate was thrown at him. A second man then appeared from the shadows and knocked the victim unconscious. He was then robbed before being kicked in the head. Now, the attack continued with the man being repeatedly kicked and stamped on, images which are too sickening to show. It happened in the early hours of December the 15th. More than a dozen cars drove past without stopping. Please call the studio now if you can help. There's been outrage following reports a dangerous criminal who's expected to be deported has instead been rehoused in a South Wales town. Jolan Gua, a gang leader labelled a serious threat to the public with a clear propensity for violence, was living in South London before serving a 27-month prison sentence for robberies. He claims to be from Sierra Leone and had been in immigration detention for more than 4 years awaiting deportation. But his true nationality couldn't be established, and last month a court ruled he had to be released. Now, the Home Office said it had vigorously opposed his application for bail, and they were continuing to fight for his removal from the UK. Now, take a look at this chap, caught red-handed climbing over a garden fence before disappearing into the night. This elusive creature was captured on camera, set up by the BBC wildlife presenter Simon King at a garden in South London. Simon's Fox camera streams live on his website and was installed to film urban wildlife. Police want to speak to the man in connection with a burglary at a house next door 10 days ago. Not so cunning, after all.
Time for more crimes caught on camera now, starting with an appalling theft from a 93-year-old woman. Inside the home of a pensioner in London on a Thursday lunchtime last October. The elderly woman, who has to use a stick to walk, answers the door to a man in glasses wearing a white top, jeans and trainers. He pushes past her and into the kitchen, telling her he's there to check her water supply. He asks the woman to go into the living room and check the radiators while he rummages around under the sink. Once she's out of sight, the man, who has a large tattoo on his left hand, starts looking around the kitchen. He opens a drawer where the lady keeps her purse. He takes it, slipping it between some papers he's carrying. He has a quick look in the other cupboards and a last check under the sink before leaving with the purse. He thinks he's got away with it, but it's all been caught by hidden cameras which were installed after previous burglaries. What a lowlife. We need to flush out this cowardly thief tonight. Who is he? Inside a nightclub in Harrogate during the early hours of a Sunday morning last June. A larger guy wearing a polo shirt and carrying a bottle walks up the stairs on his way to the beer garden. A few minutes later, he's outside smoking and chatting. He becomes involved in an argument with another man wearing a white shirt. The bigger guy looks like he's about to leave, but he's not done yet, suddenly smashing the bottle across the other man's face. The attacker then leaves. The victim needed facial surgery and is scarred for life. Time to use your bottle and name the man responsible tonight. Just before closing time inside the NatWest Bank in Newquay in Cornwall on a Tuesday afternoon in June last year. A man carrying a Hessian shopping bag and wearing a dark Helly Hansen jacket, a beige cap and just one dark-coloured glove walks in and up to the counter. He holds up a note written in orange ink for the female cashier to read. It says he has a gun and demands money. The terrified clerk starts to hand over cash while the man tells her to hurry up. He grabs the money and shoves it in his bag before leaving. Put a cap on his stealing ways and tell us who he is. Maybe that last guy needed cash to buy a second glove. If you need another look, all the CCTV you've just seen is on the website. Call and text the numbers on screen if you can help.
Let's get the latest on what's been happening on the phones tonight. In Buxton, we saw that appalling burglary, the men with the knives who stormed Kevin's home. How have the calls been for you?
We've had a number of encouraging calls from the public, which I'd like to thank them for. People are particularly telling us about the distinctive red and black gloves.
Right.
I'd like to hear more about that. I do have a team of detectives here and at Buxton following those calls up. I'd like to point out there is a £25,000 reward for information leading to the arrest and conviction of these offenders, so I'd like people to know about that. But I'd still like them to, as well as looking at the CCTV images again, think about the effect that this offence had on those children.
Yeah, we saw those little kids. They were tied up, they were bound, the flashing knives around them. The levels of threat and violence were very high.
Absolutely. This is about the children as much as it is about the money, and we need to apprehend these people so they can't do it to anybody else again.
OK, and if people want another look at the CCTV, it's on the website. People can keep looking at it if they want some clues about the three-striped trousers, the gloves and the rest of it. Let's go to Matthew.
West Midlands Police are appealing tonight to trace 57 men they say were involved in various acts of violence and disorder last summer. The offences took place during an English Defence League protest in Birmingham on Saturday the 20th of July last year. The worst of the trouble happened in the Birmingham Centenary Square outside the newly built Central Library. Among the 57 faces behind me, there are 3 men officers are particularly keen to speak to. The first is this man who police say was at the forefront of the disorder. It's the man in the red T-shirt squaring up to the police line. Do you recognise him? And how about this man with no shirt on, seen here kicking out at a police dog? And finally, we have this guy in the long blue shorts. Now, watch carefully. Police say he attacked an officer, kicking him in the chest. He's right in the thick of it, and here he is again, showing off his tattoos to the camera. Now, you can take a closer look at all 57 faces there. They are on our website, and if you recognise any of them, call the usual studio numbers. Or if you prefer, you can speak anonymously to Crime Stoppers. They're on 0800 555 111.
Now to, well, a very unusual and also very terrifying case. It happened in Lanarkshire in Scotland. A hard-working couple were living in a caravan whilst they saved to buy their dream home. But one morning in September, shortly after her fiancé had set off for work, an armed robber burst in and attacked the woman on her own. After robbing her, he subjected her to a very serious sexual assault. To help catch this man before he does it again, the couple have bravely talked to us about what happened. Their words are spoken tonight by actors.
Have a nice day.
Where's the money? Where is it?
We can't wait for the day that we can move into our own house.
We went out. We worked. We saved our money. We wanted to build our own house.
I mean, it's everybody's dream to do that. Living in a caravan. We called it a home. It was our home. The night wasn't really different from any other night. We just watched the telly, done the dishes, shower, and then bed. You still on that book, Essie? Nothing really out of the ordinary.
Nighty-night.
Good night. It was about 8:15. I was making my breakfast, and my fiancé left.
I'll see you soon, mate.
See you later. Have a lovely day.
Bye-bye.
I gave him a kiss goodbye. I waved to him while he was going down the hill. I'd gone into the living room and I heard a noise. I was heading back towards the back of the caravan, and then the guy just appeared.
Where's the money?
And then he started demanding money, and that's when I felt the gun at the side of my head.
Where is it?
And I told him I didn't have any money.
Where is the money?
But he said I was lying.
Show me where it is.
And then he pushed me.
Show me.
I didn't see the point in fighting.
Where is it?
So I went through and I gave him the money that I had.
Quickly!
Oh God, please.
Come on, move!
He had hold my hair and just kept pushing me. And he pushed me back into the bedroom. I didn't want to, but I was terrified. I just thought there was no point. Just do what he wanted me to do. And it was just a nightmare. Just really, you never really think it would be something that would happen to you. I had to tell him where the car keys were, and he went in and got them.
I'm taking this. Don't move.
I lay on the bed until I knew he was gone. came out the caravan and I jumped into the car. I got the phone and I phoned my fiancé. I need you. And it was just the familiar voice.
I was straight in the car and headed straight back over to where she was. It was a case of getting to her and making sure she was safe. And I met the car. And the guy was hammering the car. It wasn't until he was nearly past me that I realised it was him.
Why me? That's all I keep saying, is why me?
You support her as much as you can. But I'll never know what she went through.
Knowing that he's still out there, I feel like he's laughing at us. I mean, we've had to move out of our home. It's just spoiled everything. It's just hanging over me all the time. I feel like he's going to come back. I can't go anywhere on my own. And it's changed me. I think it's changed my life.
Well, DCI Gary Church from Police Scotland is leading the investigation. He's joining us tonight. This is worrying. It's really horrific what happened to this young woman. You think that somebody out there knows who did it?
Most definitely. We believe that the answers lie within the local community. The offender may have told someone about the robbery, but not about possibly the sexual assault.
Right.
He may also have been acting differently since the attack. What we can't and what we shouldn't lose sight of is this was a terrifying attack on a young woman within her own home and within her own bedroom. We can eliminate people from this inquiry very easily.
Okay.
So we'd ask people, if they have any suspicions at all about anyone, to give us a call and give us a name.
OK, Gary, we saw in the reconstruction there that this guy was wearing a sort of black hooded mask thing, but actually, interestingly, you've got a really good description of him. There are some important facts that people should know. What are they?
That's correct. The victim describes him as 5'8" to 5'10", stocky build with a beer belly. He's described as having a local accent, wearing a green army-style jumper,
right,
which had patches on the sleeves. It was worn. He was wearing dark-coloured trousers, black boots, and she describes that he was smelling as if he hadn't washed for some time.
OK. How did this guy make his escape then? Just take us through it.
Yeah, he stole the couple's black BMW.
Right.
He drove the vehicle then onto the main road in Salisbury. He then turned left onto Duntilland Road, where, just as he passed Eastern Moffat Golf Course, he actually met the victim's fiancée passing in the opposite direction. He then drove on to Main Street in Plains, where he turned onto Arbuckle Road, and then he abandoned the vehicle on Airdrie Hill Road. And what we need to find out is, because we suspect that he was picked up by someone on Airdrie Hill Road, and we need to know who picked him up, where he was taken, and most importantly, who he is.
You picked up this BMW that he nicked pretty early on. We've got some CCTV of that. Where is this exactly?
CCTV that we've got shows the vehicle on Duntilland Road as it crosses country to get to Main Street in Plains. The next bit of footage is on Main Street in Plains when it turns right onto Arbuckle Road. OK. Gary, for now, thanks very much for all that information you gave there. It's really terrifying, isn't it? We really have got to find this guy. Do call us now. You know the number. It's 0500 600 600. And, of course, if you've been a victim of crime, then there is the victim support line to help you. They are on 0845 30 30 900.
Next tonight, Sussex police, hunting the killer of 55-year-old Valerie Graves, have released pictures of a weapon they think may have been used to murder her as she house-sat for friends over Christmas. Well, Detective Superintendent Nick May joins me. A dreadful case, this one. Tell us what you know.
Yeah, it's a truly shocking case for the town of Bosham. Valerie Graves was a 55-year-old lady. She was staying house-sitting for some friends in Bosham, which is just south of Chichester. And she was found dead on the morning of Monday, the 30th of December. The householders were actually away, and we're conducting inquiries to establish who knew that they were away.
Now, you found a hammer, which you believe is the murder weapon, haven't you?
Yeah, we've conducted very extensive searches in and around the Bosham area, and we found a claw hammer, which we strongly believe to be the hammer which killed Valerie.
And you've got one very similar here. It is very distinctive, as you were saying.
Yes, it's got forged steel written on it. It's a very distinctive black and red handle, and we're very interested to speak to anybody who has lost or had one of these stolen in the recent past.
And police officers, probation officers, prison officers, you want their help as well. Tell me why.
Yeah, we're very interested to talk to or to get some calls from police officers, probation officers, also anyone working in mental health services, because anyone who has seen someone recently who has talked about harming somebody with a hammer.
Now, we have some recent footage of Valerie. It was taken at a university event. I mean, obviously devastating for the family.
Yeah, Valerie was a much-loved mother and grandmother. She'd recently moved down from Scotland to Sussex to look after her mother. Her family are absolutely devastated, and we're very hopeful that viewers tonight will call in and help us help the family.
All right, good luck with this one, Detective. Thank you. The numbers, well, they're there on the screen if you can help. Martin.
Time for some more crooks in action now, starting with an armed robbery in Surrey at the end of last month. Inside Bletchingley Post Office early on the morning of New Year's Eve. A member of staff and her partner have just opened up when a man wearing grey trousers, a blue anorak and a rather fetching festive bobble hat walks in carrying what looks like a handgun. The man in the hat forces the pair into the back office where he binds their wrists with cable ties. A few minutes later, they're back in the shop where he orders the man to empty the till into the JD Sports carrier bag he's brought with him. He then helps himself to rolls and rolls and rolls and rolls of scratch cards, as well as handfuls of cigarettes. Once his bag is full, he scarpers, leaving the two victims still tied up. He may have been hoping for a lucky lottery win with those scratch cards, but his number is certainly up tonight. Name, please. It's opening time at the Lloyds TSB Bank in Leicester on a Thursday morning last July. Seconds after the manager unlocks the doors, two men with their faces covered and wearing shades walk in. While the one in the dark hat hovers by the door, preventing any other customers from entering or leaving, the other one, who's wearing a grey hoodie and carrying a holdall, rushes inside. He grabs the door to the back office before it closes and gets behind the counter where he threatens the staff with a machete, forcing them to hand over thousands of pounds. Both men then make off. There's a 25 grand reward for information leading to the conviction of this shady pair. Tell us who they are. A Friday evening last November, and a man dressed in a grey tracksuit walks into a convenience store in Scunthorpe. But there's something odd about him. No, he's not really that ugly. He's wearing a Chucky mask from the horror film Child's Play. But this scary movie isn't fiction. It's real. He threatens the startled cashier with what looks like a handgun, before demanding she empty the contents of the till into the little plastic bag he's brought with him. He then runs off. Exactly a month later, and he's ready for the sequel. He's changed his trousers and trainers, but the gun, the mask and the little bag are just the same. This time the target is the Sainsbury's petrol station on Scunthorpe's Doncaster Road. Again he threatens the female cashiers and tells them to hand over money. They empty the tills and he flees. Now he may have his face covered, but someone knows who this horror is. Unmask him tonight. No one wants a Chucky trilogy. If you can name him or anyone else in tonight's CCTV, please get in touch in the usual ways. And of course, everything you've seen is all online.
Some updates on previous cases now, starting with an appeal from October's programme. Police in Luton asked for your help after 27-year-old Atif Ali was shot as he made his way to work in Luton in May. Well, last week, 4 men were charged with conspiracy to murder. We'll keep you updated on how that case progresses.
Now, last week marked 1 year since the brutal murder of 86-year-old Una Crown. You'll remember that she was stabbed and then set on fire in her own home in Wisbech in Cambridgeshire on January 13th last year. Well, detectives are now making a fresh appeal for information and believe that the answer to Una's murder does lie within her local community. They say they're determined to get justice, and there is a 10 grand reward for information that leads to the arrest and conviction of Una's killer. The full reconstruction is still on the Crimewatch website.
Some previously wanted faces now who've been brought to justice. Firstly, Michael Cope, who we featured last summer after he went on the run following the death of his ex-partner Lindsay Ashton, who was found strangled and beaten at her Salford home last June. Well, on Monday, 28-year-old Cope pleaded guilty to her murder, and yesterday he was sentenced to life and will serve a minimum of 27 years in prison.
In 2011, we were looking for Neil Robinson, who was wanted for sexual offences against children. You are an amazing bunch, you Crimewatch viewers, because you told us that he was 5,000 miles away in Beijing. 47-year-old Robinson was found and returned to the UK, where he pleaded guilty to 3 counts of unlawful sexual intercourse with a girl under 13, 1 count of making an indecent video of a child, and 3 counts of indecent assault. Well, earlier this month, he was sentenced to 12 years in prison. Just shows you can run, but you can't hide.
Finally, in September, we showed you this shocking CCTV of a man called Jonathan King Kalea knocking out a man and a woman outside a taxi office in Surrey. After seeing himself on the show, 31-year-old King Kalea contacted the police, and last month he pleaded guilty to 2 counts of assault and 1 of affray. He was sentenced to 12 months in prison. An excellent result.
Now, still to come, we're going to be live at the site of the well in South London, where the body of a man was discovered back in November. We're going to have previously unreleased images of the crime scene in the hope that viewers can help solve the case. And Kew done it. The hunt for the green-fingered thief who's still a priceless, incredibly rare lily from Kew Gardens.
More faces now, starting with Joseph Vincent Garagos, also known as Lee Anthony Bourne. He was part of a gang which stole more than £50,000 from 2 security guards delivering cash to a bank in Herefordshire in 2010. During the robbery, one of the guards was hit over the head with a brick by another member of the gang. Garagos was convicted of robbery but failed to turn up for his sentencing. The 25-year-old, who's from Merseyside and has a Scouse accent, has a scar on the right of his chin. He's considered to be dangerous, so if you see him or know where he is, just call 999 immediately. Next is Brian Anthony Ward. The 57-year-old is wanted after going on the run halfway through his trial for a series of indecent assaults against a child. He was convicted in his absence. He has links to Cardiff and Pontyclun in South Wales and London, but police think he may have travelled to Malta, where he also has connections. 7 is Mohammed Yusuf, who also goes by Yusuf Ahmed or Ahmed Yusuf, or just his nickname, Afro. Police want to talk to him about a fight during which a man was slashed across the face with a Stanley knife. The 27-year-old has some distinctive dentistry, including this silver tooth, and has links to Slough and London. He's considered to be dangerous, so if you see him, just call 999 immediately. And finally tonight is Stephen James Probert. He is wanted by officers from forces across the UK in connection with dozens of offences, including threatening to kill a social worker, using counterfeit currency, cultivating cannabis, property fraud, and a series of thefts where expensive cars, including BMWs, Mercedes and Audis, were stolen from dealerships. He may have shorter hair than when this picture was taken and may well look more like these CCTV images of him, which were captured last September. 37-year-old Probert is originally from Gwent but travels extensively. He also uses a variety of aliases and may well have a false passport. Call and text on the usual numbers if you recognise any of tonight's faces. They're all online and you can have another look by pressing the red button on your remote.
Police investigating a body found in a well just outside Croydon in November have now established the victim was bound up before being hidden around 2 years ago. 29-year-old Damien Wifka's decomposed body was found by labourers clearing weeds in a suburban garden in Wallingham. Well, DI Michael Norman joins us live from the scene. And Michael, tell us more about that discovery, first of all.
It was the 15th of November last year. The two workmen were clearing the garden behind me at 11A Audley Drive in Warlingham when they uncovered a well. Within the well, they saw what they believed to be a body. Police were called and the body was found to be covered in a blue plastic sheeting. Following a post-mortem, the body was identified as Damien Hifka, a Polish national, who sustained fractures of his ribs and eye sockets, and a murder investigation was launched.
Now, that investigation so far, tell me a little more about what you've actually established.
Well, as I say, from the post-mortem we discovered that the body appeared to have been bound by the wrists with tape. As I said, it suffered fractures which were consistent with a severe beating. What we have discovered is that Damien Hifka, a Polish national, was reported missing on the 17th of April 2011. He was last seen leaving an address in Thornton Heath.
And how much do you know of his time whilst he was in the UK?
Damien came from Poland, from a town called Glogów in southwest Poland in 2008 in response to a job advert in the Polish media. He worked consistently in the UK, in Croydon and in Surrey, in car washing, car valeting and the building trade. He originally lived at this address, 11A Audley Drive, but subsequently lived in Hounslow, West London, and also in Thornton Heath, Surrey, the address where he was reported missing from.
And how can our viewers help? Who specifically would you like to hear from tonight?
Well, we believe that the answer to the cause of Damien's death lies within the Polish working community in Croydon and Surrey. So I would particularly like to appeal to those people who knew Damien, his associates, people he lived with, people he worked with. I would appeal for them to come forward. I have officers from Operation Nexus, who are Polish-speaking officers, in the incident room who are waiting to take your calls.
OK, Detective, thanks very much for all of that. And if you can help in any way, please get in touch using the numbers there on the screen. Kirsty.
Thanks, Matthew. Now, take a look at this little beauty. It is the world's smallest water lily. You probably can't see it because all the lights have gone out, but I can tell you that it does have a little delicate white flower that are no bigger than a £1 coin when it is in blossom. Now, one similar to this, there it is again in all its glory, one similar to this was stolen from a shallow pond at Kew Royal Botanic Gardens in West London earlier this month. Well, DC Lee Osborne from the Met is investigating this case, and along with him this evening is Richard Barley. He's the Director of Horticulture, no less, at Kew Gardens. Welcome to you both, and thanks for joining us. Lee, if I can come to you first of all, tell us a little bit more about how and when this beautiful little specimen went missing.
Well, on Thursday, the 9th of January this year, between 8:30 in the morning and 2:55 in the afternoon, a rare water lily was stolen from the Princess of Wales Conservatory from the Royal Botanical Gardens at Kew. The plant was either dug or pulled from a shallow pond within inside the conservatory.
Now tell me, do you think, it sounds to me, I know nothing about these things, that somebody knew exactly what they were looking for when they took this? It's so rare and it's priceless.
That's right, we believe it was taken by a collector or it was stolen to order. The lily was actually planted just off of the public footpath, and at the time of the theft the flower wasn't in bloom, so somebody obviously knew exactly what they were looking for when they've taken this item.
Now, Richard, of course, the press and TV programmes bandy about phrases like priceless, and just tell me, how rare is this? How did it come about that you actually had this plant?
Well, it's incredibly rare. It was only discovered on the edge of a thermal spring in Rwanda in 1987, and only a very small colony of a couple of square metres. 2 plants were salvaged from the colony and taken back to Germany, and then subsequently the colony perished because the water was diverted from the spring. So plants were held in Germany, but they couldn't work out how to actually germinate the seed and grow new plants, and that's where Kew came in. We received seeds. Our horticulturists were able to work out scientifically how to get the plants to grow, and hence the species was conserved.
You're a clever bunch. There are only 30 of them, well now 29, you know where they are in the whole of Great Britain. The one that was stolen, it's your opinion, is it, that it would be very, very difficult to keep that plant alive?
They have very exacting requirements in terms of moisture level, water temperature, pH, and they would really require expert care to keep them in good health.
And now, what about, you know, people think, well, is there really a market? If this was stolen to order, but the more you've talked to me about it today, the more I've learned that actually when it comes to things like lilies and also especially orchids, there really is a black market in these beautiful and rare specimens.
Sadly, around the world there's illegal trade in plants, in animals and other things, and this is all totally unlawful, but people seem to be prepared to do these things in spite of the fact that there are quite severe penalties for anyone caught carrying or moving these plants without the appropriate certification. So it is a very serious issue.
Lee, can I just ask you to round up again what it is? If people were at Kew Gardens on the day that this plant disappeared, what should they be looking at? What might have struck them as being a bit odd?
We urge anybody that was there on the day of the theft to recall if they saw anybody acting suspiciously inside the conservatory. Maybe they had muddy hands, they were wet, or even possibly carrying a wet carrier bag that they've used to take this plant from the conservatory.
Yeah, if you saw something like that on the day and it just struck you as odd, then they should get in contact with us. Thanks very much for talking to us. It really is fascinating stuff, all this. It might seem like a bit of a long shot, but maybe there's somebody out there who knows something. If so, can you please call us tonight? Right now, just time for a final update from Martin.
Well, it's been a productive night on the phones. Lots of calls coming in. We'll start with the first of our wanted faces, Lamine Touré. Incredible response to this one. Lots of calls from people, all putting him in exactly the same area as recently as last week. Police are following that up as we speak. Then the first of our CCTV. Remember that awful distraction burglary on that 93-year-old lady? We've had several calls giving potential names for that man. Again, those are all being followed up. And tremendous response to our second CCTV. That attack in the beer garden in Harrogate where the beer bottle was smashed across a man's face. Lots of calls and emails coming in about this, many giving exactly the same name. That's a wonderful response. Please keep those calls coming in. It's so important that you do.
Thanks very much, Martin. That's just about everything for now then. But remember, all of tonight's appeals remain on our website. The wanted faces, well, they stay on the red button until midnight tonight. So please do take another look if you can. You can stay up to date with how the cases progress tonight via Twitter, and of course the phone lines, well, they're going to be open until midnight tomorrow. We're back again tonight, of course, at 10:35 p.m. That's after the news. I'll bring you the very latest on what looks to have been, I think, a very interesting and busy night. Viewers in Northern Ireland are going to have to wait until 11:35 p.m. tonight for the roundup. For now, though, from me and everyone here on the team, thanks so much for all your phone calls. They really do make a difference. If you can't get through, do keep trying. From everyone here, for now, bye-bye.